So Zayman, we talked about the linear equations. We discussed in that, and I need to compare between both. So I just want to show you شوية هنا. In the linear functions, we said that the most important thing is that x is to the power of 1. And we said also is that the graph of that will be a line, and that's why it's called linear. واللاين ده يا إما من الشمال اليمين طالع فوق يا إما من الشمال اليمين نازل لتحت. So this is what we call a positive slope, and this is what we call a negative slope. This is what we discussed. And because a graph is a line, we realized that the most important things whenever we think of linear functions are the slope and the y-intercept, because these are the two most important things in any line. When you look at any line, we realize that these are the important things there. So what happens in a quadratic function on the other hand? So a quadratic is a function that has, or an equation that has an x must be to the power of 2. Now the graph of that function, or of that quadratic function, will look like a parabola. It's a U-shape كده. It's called the parabola. This U-shape, it's either looking upwards or it could be looking downwards. If it is looking up, this is a positive parabola. If it's looking down, this is a negative parabola. What else? Because the graph of the quadratic function is a parabola, we know, or we realized that in any parabola, there is a point right there which is considered the peak of the parabola. It's either the lowest point in the parabola or it could be the highest point in the parabola. So by looking at the graph, we realize there's something else that's important for quadratic functions. The slopes doesn't apply for quadratic function anymore because it's not a line. So what's the most important thing in any quadratic function now? It's what we call the vertex. The vertex is the peak of the parabola. If it's looking down, then it's the highest point of the parabola. If it's looking up, then it's the least point of the parabola. It's the lowest point down. Okay. So when we ask what's the most important thing in a quadratic function, it is mainly the vertex. Why is the vertex important? So the vertex is a point. It has an x and a y coordinate. We just said that this parabola, or this vertex, is considered the least point in this parabola. Least. But in this parabola that's looking up, this is considered the highest parabola, the maximum highest. So the y coordinate of the vertex is either the maximum value of the parabola or it is the minimum value of the parabola. If the parabola is looking up, then the y will be considered the minimum value. If the parabola is looking down, then the y of this, or the y of the vertex of this parabola would be considered the maximum point, the highest point of the parabola. So far, does this make sense or not? Okay, all good. Type. Now, what about the x coordinate? Why is the x coordinate considered, why is it important? What does it represent in a vertex? Now, if you look at the vertex, if you graphed a vertical line, just like this dotted line here, or there, you'll find that this vertical line, if you graph the vertical line at the vertex, this vertical line will split the parabola into two equal parts. So once I drew this vertical line, I could tell that now the parabola has this side over here and exactly similar to it another side on over here. So it splits the parabola into two equal parts. The line that splits the parabola into two equal parts is called the axis of symmetry. Why is the axis of symmetry important? because this x coordinate of the vertex is always exactly in the middle between any 2 points on the parabola. So if you picked, for example, this point and this point, the x coordinate of the vertex would be the point that's exactly in the middle. So if, let's say, this x is at 5 and this x is at 4, is at 3, definitely the vertex is what's in the middle, exactly in the middle, which is 4. That's what's in the middle between 3 and 5. Does this part make sense as well? Awesome. So our target now is to get to know how to find the vertex in any kind of situation related to quadratic functions, whether we're given a graph or whether we're given an equation. So there are mainly two cases that could be there, and we need to know how to handle both. We could be given a graph, and out of the graph, it's easy to find the vertex. Or we could be given equations, and that's the bigger part, the more important part, and so on. If you're given a graph, the graph must be in an xy axis like this one, and all what you need to do is just look at the parabola, find where exactly is the midpoint over here, get this x coordinate and y coordinate, and that's your vertex. Now, some cases, you may be given the parabola, but you're not told anything except these two values. Let's say you're given this point over here at 2, and let's say this point over there at -4. And we would like to find the x coordinate of the vertex. How do we find that? So we know that the x coordinate of the vertex is what represents the axis of symmetry. What does that mean? It means that the x coordinate is exactly in the middle between any two x coordinates like these. So all what I need to do is to get whatever is in the middle between the -4 and the 2. Get the midpoint, in other words, between -4 and the 2. Now, how do I get the midpoint between any two things? I add them and I divide them by 2. So in order to get the midpoint between any two numbers, I just add them and I divide them by 2. So this will come out as -2/2, which is -1. This is the x coordinate of the vertex. My vertex will have -1 on the x. I cannot, or I don't know what's the y coordinate. I don't care for that one in this question, but I could easily find the x coordinate using this idea there. Does this one make sense? Are we clear? This is the thing. It depends on what's given in the question. They'll give you one way or another to figure it out. I can either show you على طول what's the coordinates of this vertex, يعني I can show you from the graph that this is مثلا -1 and this is +2, so you can easily figure it out. Or I'll give you two x coordinates and you find the x coordinate over there. But I won't put you in a situation where it's impossible to figure it out, فاهم؟ ما ينفعش اجيبها زي تقريبا كده. تقريبا could work if the options or the choices are clear enough to show which one of them is the correct one. But if you مثلا see that the choices are 3.1, 3.2, 3.5, and 3.6, it's hard to figure them out. If the choices are -7, 2, and 20, and 100, this is clear. There are differences between them, so you can tell the x coordinate is where. Okay. Now, the other point or other way is بالنسبة لي way more important. اللي هي ايه؟ I'm trying to re-explain it برضه عشان Jad, you're saying you didn't understand it. How do I find the midpoint between any two things in the world? I just add them and I divide them by 2 to find the midpoint between anything. So for example, if I need to find the midpoint of the age that's exactly in the middle between your age and my age, I'll add both our ages and then divide them by 2. So if I need here to find what's exactly in the middle between this -4 and this 2, all what I need to do is just add them and then divide them by 2. So I'll put the -4 and I'll put the 2, and I'll apply the midpoint rule, which is adding them and dividing them by 2. This will get me -1. This -1, again, is the x coordinate of the vertex. It's this point right here, which is not, it's right there actually. If the graph is accurate, this is where the y-axis should be, and that should be exactly where the x coordinate exists. Does this make sense يا جد شوية or not? Awesome. Right, so this is actually the easy part. This is whenever we're given a graph. Now, the important and more complicated parts are the equations. There are different forms of the equations, just like how the linear functions had different forms. The first form is the standard form, the most important one and the most common one. Okay? And the standard form is the form that has x to the power of 2 and x to the power of 1 and a number without an x. So it's written in this form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. This is the standard form. Again, the characteristics of it is that it includes x power 2 and x power 1 and a number without an x. So how do we find the vertex out of this form? We follow a rule that says -b over 2a. When you do the -b over 2a, this gets me the x coordinate of the vertex. So if you took this b, you switched its sign and divided by 2 times this number over here, this will get you the x coordinate of the vertex. It's a rule. Then how do I find the y coordinate of the vertex? I'll do something called f of -b over 2a. What does that mean? Let's see an example. Let's say you're given this function, x squared of this equation minus 6x plus 8 equals to 0. Now, how do I find the vertex? First thing is -b over 2a, which is positive 6 in this case, over 2 times the a, which is 1. That would give me 3. This is the x coordinate of the vertex. Now, if I want to find the y, I'll substitute this x coordinate itself into the equation. So if I need to find the y, I'll get f of -b over 2a, which means f of 3, which means I'll remove each x and substitute 3. Once you calculate that, it will get you -1, and this is the y coordinate of the vertex. So now I have the full vertex, which is mainly 3 and -1. Does this make sense? Are we clear on this example and this form عامة? Awesome. So first form, standard form, as we said, that's now easy to calculate. What's form number 2? It's what we call the vertex form. And it's called the vertex form because it shows the vertex. Again, this one is important. Why? And why is it called the vertex form? It shows the vertex into the equation itself. So what's the vertex form? What are the characteristics of it? Is that it has a bracket, and inside that bracket there is an x, and that bracket is to the power of 2. So what's the difference between the vertex form and the standard form? The standard form had x to the power of 2, x to the power of 1, and a number without an x. while the vertex form has an x in a bracket, and that bracket is to the power of 2. Now, how do I find the vertex out of this form? We just said it shows the vertex. So all what you need to do is to take this number inside the bracket with the opposite sign. This is the x coordinate. And this number outside of the bracket with the same sign. This is the y coordinate. Now let's see an example. Let's say you're given negative 3x minus 2 all to the power of 2 plus 4 equals to 0. You need to find the vertex of this function. As we said, we disregard everything. We just work with the number inside the bracket with the opposite sign. So that's positive 2. And the number outside of the bracket with the same sign, that's positive 4. This is my vertex. That's it. Done. The axis of symmetry in this case is the 2. The minimum or maximum value of the function is the 4. And we didn't yet figure out whether it's minimum or maximum. Any questions until this point? All right, طيب. Third form and last form. It's what we call the factor form. This is also extremely important because it's been repeated a lot in the previous few tests. This factor form shows too many different things. First of all, it shows the x-intercepts. It also shows the factors of the function. It shows the solutions. It shows the x values. It shows the roots of the function. And it shows the zeros of the function. So all of these are exactly the same thing. The x-intercepts, the x values, the roots, the zeros, the solutions of the functions, they're all the same thing. So if you're asked to find the solutions, you know that you need to find the x-intercept. If you're asked to find the roots, this means you need to find the x-intercepts. If you're asked to find the zeros, this still means you need to find the x-intercepts. So what is this form? How is it written? And what are the characteristics of it? It has two brackets, not just one. And both brackets has x's in them. And both brackets have numbers in them as well. Now, if you look at them written in brackets as they are right now, each one of those brackets is called a factor. While if you decided to say, to get the values of x and say that this means that x is equals positive h, the x is equals positive k, these are what we call roots. These are what we call x-intercepts or solutions or zeros or x values. So let's see برضو an example. Imagine you're given that the equation of one of the parabolas is written this way: x minus 3 and x plus 5 equals to 0. You are asked to find out to identify the x-intercepts of this function. What are the x-intercepts? They are these two numbers, but with the opposite signs. So it's x equals 3 and x equals negative 5. This means if I decided to graph this, it should intersect the x here at negative 5 and the x here at positive 3. Does this make sense? Yes, no, not very clear. Okay, let's see another example. You remember the parabola we worked on here, this one? The one that had the x-intercepts at negative 4 and 2? if I needed to write the equation of this function, all what you need to do is to work with those x-intercepts. Those two, both of them, are called x-intercepts. And there's this factor form that I just explained. It displays the x-intercepts, but with the opposite sign. So all what I'll do is take this -4 and put it inside of a bracket next to the x with the opposite sign, +4. And I'll take this 2, put it inside of a bracket next to the x with the opposite sign, -2. This is the equation of this function. That's it. If I'm given the graph and I'd like to find the equation, this is what I do. If I'm given the equation and I'd like to understand what does those points represent in the graph, I understand that they represent the x-intercepts. Does that make better sense شوية أو more sense؟ جد ومحمد وعمر. Yes, they're also called factors, but the thing is, the brackets اللي هما x plus 4 and x minus 2, these are called factors. The points themselves اللي هما بالopposite signs اللي هي -4 وال+2 دول اسمهم x intercepts أو solutions أو roots زي ما كنا بنقول هنا كده. So again, mainly total of 3 forms: standard form, vertex form, factor form. Standard form
زي ما نلاقي vertex
yes ثانية واحدة في الفاكتور. أيوه هقول لك حالا، برافو هقول لك حالا. Actually I'll let you figure it out يعني. So the standard form is this one اللي فيها x squared و x power 1 و plus c، ودي عشان أجيب منها الفيرتكس بعمل negative b over 2a و substitute again في الإيكويشن عشان أطلع ال y. في الفيرتكس فورم اللي هي الفورم دي اللي هي فيها براكت 1 باور 2، دي عشان اطلع منها الفيرتكس باخد الرقم اللي جوه البراكت بعكس الساين والرقم اللي بره البراكت with the same sign. في بقى الفاكتور فورم اللي هي فيها 2 براكتس كده والاثنين فيهم اكسس والاثنين equals to برضه 0 at the end. دي بقى ازاي بجيب منها الفيرتكس؟ مش انا لسه حالا قايل ان دول الاثنين يعتبروا الاكس انترسبتس؟ How do you think we can find يا عمر الاكس coordinate of the vertex؟
الميد
بالظبط. So you'll add 3 plus -5 زي ما احنا لسه قايلين earlier, divide by 2. That would get me -2 over 2, which is -1. So I know that the x coordinate here is -1. طب how do I find the y coordinate? You have the equation already. Substitute فيها ال x ب -1. So put -1 minus 3 and then -1 plus 5. -1 minus 3 is -4. This is 4, and that would get you -16. So the y coordinate is -16. So the vertex is -1 and -16. Does that make sense? So if I want to give you a rule in how to find the vertex from the vertex form, sorry, from the factor form, you just need to take these two numbers axis signs, add them to each other, and then divide by 2. Once you get the x coordinate, if you need to find the y, just find f of h plus k over 2. So whatever you got in the x, substitute again into the equation.
مستر دي اسهل واسرع صح من لو احنا عملنا التو براكتس
multiplication وعملناهم standard صح؟ طبعا
كده اسهل صح؟
طبعا طبعا. طيب any questions until here? One of the very important things to know about the quadratic equation is specifically the standard form. Standard form, we said it's the one that has ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, there is a rule here. Whenever a is equals to 1, يبقى طول ما ال A equals 1 مش equals لأي حاجة تانية I can call this B the sum of the solutions and I can call this C the product of the solutions. But this B is the product with the, sorry, is the sum with the opposite sign. And this C is the product but with the same sign. What does that mean and what am I talking about? So imagine this example here. You're given x squared minus 16x plus 28 equals to 0. In some questions, they may ask you, what is the product of the solutions of the equation? So when you look at this, this is a quadratic equation in the standard form. And if you need to find the solutions, this means you should get the factors and then get the x values, which is something we don't know how to do until now. Of course, we know how, but I mean, we didn't learn with each other how. So I can use, as long as the A is equals to 1, I can use those numbers, these two numbers, which are the negative 16 and the 28, to represent the product and the sum of the solutions. The 28, the number that's not multiplied by the x, this is the product of the solutions right there. This is the answer. Done. If in another question they ask me for the sum of the solutions, then all what I need to do is to take this negative 16 and put it with the opposite sign, positive 16. This is the sum of the solution. In some questions, they may even ask you to find the average of the solutions. Now, what is the average? Side note كده, we'll discuss the average later on in details, but for now, the average is the sum over the number. What does that mean? It means if I need to find the average of 2 things, I'll add them and I'll divide them by 2. If I need to know the average of 6 things, I'll add them and divide them by 6. So the average of anything is adding them and dividing them by their number. If I need to know the average of the solutions, then this means I need to get the sum of the solutions and then divide it by 2, because they're just 2 solutions. There are only 2 x's. They can't be anything more than 2 x's. So if I need to find the average of the solutions, I'll just take the sum, which is this 16, and I'll divide it by 2. That would get me 8. 8 is the average of the solutions of this function. Please ask questions now.
مستر طب لو في one solution نعرف ازاي من ال
هقول لك حالا بس لا just confirm معايا ان until this point it's okay. You get how to find the average of the solutions او the product او the sum as long as a is to the power of is equals to 1. For now, I'll tell you, I'll answer your question in a minute. Everyone, we're okay? Okay. Awesome. طيب, what if I have the a equals to a number? So for example, in a question, it came once as 3x squared minus 9x plus 10 equals to 0. And they're asking for the sum of the solutions. Okay? How do I find that? So I told you we can find, or we can say that this number here is the sum with the opposite sign only if the a is equals to 1. So I can actually make it equals to 1 by dividing everything by 3. So I'll divide the whole equation by 3, which will give me x to the power of 2 minus 3x plus 10 over 3. So what's the sum of the solutions? It's this number with the opposite sign. It's 3. That's it. This is an important question. Such question was there, and you'll see it in a while. in other tests and so on. So you're given the function, but instead of a equals to 1, it's a equals to another number. And you're trying to find the sum or the product the easiest, fastest way. Just divide the whole thing by the a value, and that would get you the sum and the product. Makes sense as well? طيب. Now finally بقى, we realized that there are 3 types of x-intercepts, or there are 3 types of roots or solutions. We just agreed that these things all mean the same thing. So there are 3 types of x-intercepts, roots, solutions, zeros. They're all the same thing. What are those 3 types? There is a case where you can find that the parabola intersects the x-axis twice.
مستر النت قطع بس هو
No problem. And I knew you went out and then you joined. Don't worry. There is another case where the parabola would intersect the x-axis once. And there is a case that the parabola would not intersect the x-axis at all. So these are 3 cases showing me the number of roots of a quadratic function. So whenever you see this, whenever we're discussing the number of solutions or the number of roots, for example, they'll tell you this function has 1 root. Now we're discussing the number of roots. Or it will tell you that this function has no roots. So we're still discussing the number of roots. Whenever you see this, you think of one thing only, and that is called the discriminant. So what is the discriminant used for? It's to find the number of roots. It does not tell me the x values became. It does not show me the roots themselves, the values of them. It just shows me the number of roots, whether they are 2 roots, like this one, or it is 1 root, or there are no roots. These are the 3 possible cases. The discriminant is used to figure out this case. So what's the discriminant? The discriminant is b power 2 minus 4ac. So you remember the standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. If you would like to know the number of roots of any function written, if any equation or function written in this form, just do b power 2 minus 4ac, and then check the result. So if the result came out as a positive number, this means there are 2 roots to this function. And if the result came out as a 0, this means there is only 1 root. If the result came out as a negative number, this means there are no roots here. So let's see an example for each. Let's say we have this one. How do I check the number of roots for this one? I'll apply the rule right away, b power 2 minus 4ac, which is then equals to negative 6 to the power of 2 minus 4a, which is 1, and c, which is 8. Put this on a calculator, that would get you 36 minus 32, which is a total of 4. Now, is this 4 positive or 0 or negative? This is a positive number. Since it came out as a positive number, this means this function has 2 roots. I don't know what are the roots, but I know that there are 2 roots using this method. Does that make sense? Yes, no? Okay, fine. Good. Now, another case. Let's say you have x squared minus 10x plus 5. So مش 5 بقى لا, let's say plus 50. This will get me equals to 0 as well. B power 2 minus 4ac, so negative 10 power 2 minus 4, a which is 1 and c which is 50. Now this will get me 100 minus 200 which is negative 100. Since this is a negative number, then this means this function has no roots. Finally, another third example, x squared, let's say plus 3x plus 9 equals to 0. This, whenever you apply the b power 2 minus 4a and then c, will get you to, no, I'm sorry, I just need to change this 3 to 6. So this will get you to 0. Since this is just a 0, this means there is only one root to this function. So you see, 3 different functions are written here. The first one is this one, x squared minus 6x plus 8. And this one had 2 roots. But this one had no roots. And this one had 1 root, all depending on the result of the b power 2 minus 4ac. When it's positive, it's 2 roots. When it's negative, it's no roots. And when it's 0, it's 1 root. Does that make sense? Type. Last thing, to find the roots themselves. So to find the actual values, to find the x equals, there are 2 ways to do this. Okay, it's either by factorizing or factorization, or by the quadratic formula. These are the 2 possible ways to find the actual roots. How do I do it? By factorization. So let's say, for example, you have x squared, as we said, minus 6x plus 8. How do I factorize this? We said earlier that this number is the product of the solutions, while this number is the sum of the solutions. So you ask yourself, what 2 numbers that could be multiplied, their product would be equals to 8. And then their sum at the same time would be equals to 6. So رقمين times بعض ب8 plus بعض ب6. So you open up 2 brackets, you put the 2 x's. Apparently 2 times 4 will give me 8, and 2 plus 4 will give me 6. So I'll put the 2 here and I'll put the 4 here. Now think of the signs. There are 2 numbers. The bigger number takes the middle sign. So this will be negative. Now since this is positive, both brackets will have the same sign, which means both brackets in this case would be minus. In another case, let's say x squared plus 6x minus 8 equals to 0. You'll still open up 2 brackets, you'll put the 2 and you'll put the 4, and we said that the bigger number will take the middle sign, so this one will be the positive. But since this is negative, these 2 are not the same, which means this one must be minus. Exactly. So this is what we call the factorization method. Now what are the actual roots? Here the roots are x equals 2 and x equals 4 with the opposite signs, while here x is equals positive 2 and x is equals to negative 4. كده I got the actual roots, and they're clear there are 2 roots in these cases. So what if we can't do we can't think of the factorization? There's another way to find the values, and it's a longer way, but sometimes you'll find that the answer is already written in this form. This is a rule that says, because they're multiplied, it gives you a different number. I don't want you to focus on, never mind the numbers, I just want you to focus on the signs, okay? So this one is the bigger one, whatever it is, and this one is the smaller one. And since this is negative, the two signs are different. That's what I want you to focus on. Type, what's the quadratic formula again? It's the negative b plus or minus square root b power 2 minus 4ac, and all of this is divided by 2a. So this big formula is used to find the actual values of the x. I once add them and another time subtract them. When do we use this formula? When you'll find that the options, or that the choices, the answers, are written in a form that looks like this, negative 3, for example, plus root 5 over 2. This is clear that it somehow follows, or plus minus specifically. It follows the quadratic formula. Once you see that the choices are written in this form, know that you must use this formula right there. Let's stop here for now. Let's try to solve a few questions. And over there, by applying, we'll get to understand a lot more, inshallah. So the first question is very similar to the idea we already explained. They're asking for what is the product of the two solutions. You can either find the solutions and then get the product, or just put the equation in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0, which is this one, minus sum x plus product. So how to remove the square root? By just putting a power of 2 on the other side. So I'll have x squared now minus 5x plus 8 equals to 4. Now, the only way this could work is whenever it's equal to 0 and whenever x squared here has a coefficient of 1. So this means that I'll have to move the 4 to this side. This will get me x squared minus 5x plus 4 equals to 0. So what's the product of the two solutions? The 4 is the product. On another note, if I asked for the sum, the positive 5 would be the sum of the solution. Does this make sense? Are we good? Checking out number 8. You're given a parabola, and you're given a point on that parabola, which is 1 and 10. You're also told that the equation of the parabola is this one, y equals tx squared minus 5tx minus 6t. You're asked to find the maximum value of y. So let's say you don't know what to do, but you've read the word maximum, and you know that the word maximum is the y coordinate, or it is referred to, the y coordinate of the vertex is referred to as either the maximum or the minimum. Vertex. So all what I need to find is actually finding the vertex and getting the y of the vertex. When you look at the graph, it's very hard to figure out what's the x coordinate of the vertex from the graph, or what's the y coordinate of the vertex from the graph, which then means that I'll have to find it from the equation. So I'm given the equation, it's right there, y equals tx squared minus 5tx minus 6t. And you're given a point on that equation. What does that mean? It means if I substituted the x with 1, this one, the y should be equals to 10. And that's what I'm going to do. I'll put the y be 10. I'll leave the t because I don't know the value of t, but I know that the value of x is 1. This will get me 10 equals t plus 5t plus 6t. T plus 5t plus 6t, this is a total of 12t equals 10, which means that t is equals to 10 over 12. No, I'm sorry. They're negative. I'm sorry. It's minus actually. So this will get me 10 equals to t minus 5t minus 6t. This will then get me to 10 equals negative 11 plus 1, negative 10t. This will then get me 10 equals to negative 1. T, sorry, equals to negative 1. Now I have the value of the t, which means I have the actual equation y is equals to negative 1x to the power of 2 plus 5x plus 6. Because once you substitute the t with negative 1, it will change the signs of all the terms. Now I'll find the vertex, which is negative b over 2a, which is here equals to negative 5 over 2 times a, which is negative 1. That would get me 5 over 2. Just substitute this into the equation itself to get the y value. So negative 5 over 2 all to the power of 2 plus 5 times 5 over 2 plus 6. You put this on a calculator, it should get you the answer. I think it was, what is it? It's D, صح? It's 12.25. Does this one make sense? Everyone, we're all good? Right, moving on. Number 2. You're asked to find the average, and we've solved the question just like this one. The average of the two solutions. First of all, you can tell that this is not 1, so I need to remove the 9, which means I'll divide the whole thing by 9. So I will have x squared plus 18 divided by 9, which is 2x, and then 3 over 9 as it is for the time being equals to 0. They're asking for the average, and I know that the average is considered the sum over the number. The sum is this number, but with the opposite sign. So the sum here is negative 2, while the number is the number of the solutions, which is just 2. Negative 2 over 2 would get me negative 1. This is the average of the solutions, which is A. Is this one easy as well? Moving on to 14. The graph of the function is a parabola, which means this is quadratic. Which of the following defines f while showing the x-intercepts as constants? If you remember, I told you that the factor form shows the x-intercepts, shows the roots, shows so and so. So you need to remember that the form that shows the x-intercepts is this form that has two brackets in it, and both brackets have x's, and the numbers next to the x's are the x-intercepts, but with the opposite signs. So here I should put x plus 2, and I should put this one, which is 0, x plus 0 equals to 0. Now x plus 0 is just x multiplied by x plus 2. This is what the function should look like. When you look at the choices, apparently this is choice number A. So it's an extremely easy one. On another note, if you look at choice B, for example, the x-intercepts here are negative 1 and negative 2. So if it was graphed the right way, it should intersect somewhere here. It should look like this, for example. So this is why this is not the correct answer, definitely. Number C has x to the power of 2 and another x here, which means when they're multiplied, this will get me x power 3. This is not even a parabola. When you look at D, this is the vertex form. And the vertex form doesn't show the x-intercepts, it shows the vertex as negative 2 and negative 1. And it's actually not even the correct vertex of this function. So even D is correct and C are correct for those reasons. Does that make sense? Awesome. Finally, 34. What is the positive solution of the equation given above? So apparently there will be two solutions, and one of them will be positive and the other one is negative. Ahmed, you want me to repeat the previous one? How? So حبيبي, we said that the form that showing the x-intercepts is mainly the factor form, which is this one, x minus h and x minus k. Those two numbers المفروض with the opposite signs يبقوا ال x-intercepts, which are these 2 points. So ايه هما ال x-intercepts اللي في الجراف هنا؟ هي negative 2 و 0. حطيتهم بعكس الساينز في البراكتس جنب الاكسز. So بدل x minus 2 بقت x plus 2. بدل x minus 0 او plus 0 مش فارقه, هي 0 كده كده. So x plus 0 became just x, والx plus 2 فضلت زي ما هي في براكت x plus 2. ولما جينا بصينا على الشويسز لقينا الشويس الاولاني is the correct one. Does this solve your problem شويه يا محمد ولا مش قوي؟ عايز اقولها لك بطريقه ثانيه. Perfect. I'm sorry. We were talking بقى على اخر واحده. So how do we solve this? First of all, the easiest way to do this is to make sure that the x's are on one side and the numbers on the other side. It works either way. It works with lots of different ways, but that's one of the ways. Another way is to just subtract these two fractions. So when you look at any fractions, you need to make sure that the denominators are equal to each other in order to add them or subtract them. I have here x over x plus 2, and the other fraction is just 1 over 2. I cannot add or subtract unless these denominators are the same. This then means that I need to multiply this by 2 up and down, and I need to multiply this one by x plus 2 up and down. This will get me up 2x minus 1 times x is just x, and 1 times 2 is just 2 in a bracket, over 2x plus 4, which is the new denominator. All of this is supposed to be equals to x minus 2. Next, I'll distribute the negative. So I'll have 2x minus x minus 2 over 2x plus 4. And all of this is still equals to x minus 2. 2x minus x is just 1x minus 2 over 2x plus 4. Again, all of this is equals to x minus 2. Next is to move this denominator to the other side by multiplication. This then will give me x minus 2 equals to the other x minus 2 now multiplied by the 2x plus 4. Now, what should we do next? I should multiply these and distribute them. So I'll have x minus 2 equals to 2x power 2 plus 8x. Sorry, جبت منين ال 8 plus 4x, sorry, minus 4x, and then minus 8, which will then be, I'll add like terms together. So 2x squared, 4x minus 4x, they crossed each other, minus 8. I'll need to move everything to one side and make it equal to 0. So 2x power 2 minus x plus 2 minus 8 equals to 0, which then means that 2x squared minus x minus 6 is equals to 0. Oof, it's too long. صح؟
لسه من الأول وديت الإكس بلس 2 لحتة
دي
أو ثانية شوف إيه.
لا this is
وديت حاجة في الأول خالص الناحية التانية خالص.
النيجاتيف هاف دي النصيحة الصح بقى. يعني this is the too complicated part. عشان كده بقول لك the better to have the x's on one side and the numbers on the other side. غصب عنك if you move the negative half to the other side, I'll have here x over x plus 2. I'll move the x to this side.
وديت x over x plus 2 كله على بعضه الناحية التانية. وحطيت x minus 2
equals negative half. works. برضه works. both works. عشان كده again the reason why I said in the الأول خالص the easiest way to put the x's on one side and the numbers on the other side is that for that. But if you decided to add the fractions كده, it will take you longer. Now from this, in order list to get the x's, it will take you even longer لأن this one has 2 فيها. So أصعب في الcalculation. while عندي more than one thing. يا إما هموف الإكس دي بس الناحية دي والنيجاتيف 1 over 2 الناحية التانية و I can do this from here, or يا إما هموف الإكس over x plus 2 كلها to the other side زي ما أنت قلت, يا إما ممكن أموف negative half to the other side and the x plus 2 entirely أو الx بس to this side. You can do lots of multiple things. I strongly recommend that you put the x's on one side and the numbers on the other side, just like this.
مستر بس انا الايكويشن اللي طلعت لي في الاخر طلع لي 2 اكس واحد 2 سولوشنز يعني والاثنين كانوا بوزيتيف. انا مش عارف يعني واحده منهم كانت 2 اللي هي الاجابه والثانيه كانت هاف.
10.
حسيت هاف
لا
حاسس ان الكلام
طب خلينا نتشيك دلوقتي حاجة. خلينا لو جربناها نكملها كده. المفروض إن أنا negative 2 plus half, this is just negative 3 over 2 اللي هي negative 1.5. Now these عشان subtract them I'm supposed to add هنا x plus 2 تحت و x plus 2 فوق. And if you do this you'll get x minus x squared minus 2x all over x plus 2 equals to negative 3 over 2. Again, x and minus 2x, x and minus 2x, the like terms will get me negative x squared minus x over x plus 2, all is equals to negative 3 over 2. Now, since these are two fractions equal to each other, I'll just cross multiply. I'll have negative 2x squared minus 2x equals to negative 3x minus 6. Move everything to one side equals to 0. And that will get you positive x and then plus 6 equals to 0. Same thing. You'll have to do the either mode 5-3, and this will get you to على طول to the two answers. And I'm pretty sure, by the way, Omar, and these must be one of them positive and the other one is negative because this sign is negative.
انا بدايه الايكويشن عملتها غلط يعني في حاجه في النص عملتها غلط
يعني هما probably sign أو حاجة في النص. بس when you look at both they should get me almost the same answer. الفرق ما بين الاثنين بس في الsigns which is not a problem. They'll get you to the same x values at the end. Now if we decided to work على this one, how do we move further? Mode 5-3 in this case. خليني اعملها اقول لكم على طول the x values اللي هتطلع. One is negative 1.5 and the other one is 2. So apparently the positive 2 is the one that I'm supposed to take. The negative 1.5 cannot be the one because it's negative. Other than that, is there another way to do this mentally? Yes. How to do this mentally? I would suggest that okay. So I'll divide everything by 2 and get x squared minus half x minus 3 equals to 0. And we now have to think of two numbers multiplied by each other with 3 and added or subtracted will give you half. So the only way two things will be multiplied by each other and will give you 3. It's not even 2 times 1. Yeah, it's 2. And that would be hard for you to figure out mentally. So just work with the calculator in this case. Does this make sense or did I confuse you? طب problems? لا Jed, this is not a rationalization. Rationalization is another thing, by the way. طيب moving بعد كده there are no questions here. طيب your homework guys is for next time please to submit the remaining forms. دي أول حاجة. تاني حاجة next time next class I have to work with you على the remaining forms اللي هم 3 and 4 specifically. And the questions there are a bit complicated. Okay? Which one, Yajad, do you want me to repeat? So if you don't have questions, you can do the exit ticket and leave. If you still have any problems, I can fix them now. Question 5. Last one, يعني. طيب. What you need to do, يا حبيبي, is the following. We just need to move the x's on one side and the numbers on the other side. So I'll move this x to this side and I'll move the negative half to the other side. I'll have here x over x plus 2 minus x and all equals to the negative 2 and then plus half. Now, negative 2 plus half is negative 3 over 2. What happens next? We need to make these two with the same denominators in order to subtract them. So هسيب x over x plus 2d as it is, but the other x I'll multiply هنا معاها x plus 2 so that it has the same denominator, and I'll put in its denominator x plus 2 as well. All of this is still equals to negative 3 over 2. Now this x will remain and then minus x times x is just x squared. Now negative x times 2 is just negative 2x all over 1x plus 2 بس, only once, we don't write it twice. All of this is equals to negative 3 over 2. Now I have a fraction equals to a fraction, so just need to cross multiply. Once you do that, first simplify this x and minus 2x will become just minus x, so it's now 2 multiplied by negative x squared minus x equals to negative 3 multiplied by x plus 2. Again, I did cross multiplying. Distribute the 2 and distribute the negative 3. I'll have negative 2x squared minus 2x equals to negative 3x minus 6. I will need to move everything on one side and make it equal to 0 to put it in the standard form. So negative 2x plus 3x plus 6 equals to 0. Like terms together, I'll have negative 2x squared plus x plus 6 equals to 0. Take this to a calculator and go for mod 5(3). This will get you x1 equals to negative 1.5 and it will give you x2 equals to 2. Now he's asking for the positive solution, so this one does not work and this one must be the correct one, the positive 2. Does that make it a bit better?